When it comes to your board interview or your background interview or your psych interview or even your med interview, maybe your poly interview, how do you know if you did well? Let's discuss. Before I deep dive into this one, we have those gifts in the description for you. One is the Getting Started workshop. It's going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process. Trust me, jump on it, learn the tips and tricks in there, learn knowledge is power. Plus, there's some hidden bonuses in there to include a new one we just added, which is the police eligibility exam. It's going to let you know where you rank and if you have maybe some more hurdles that you need to go over, then maybe some articulation you might need to do more than other candidates. Doesn't mean you're not qualified, just means that you might have some bigger hurdles to get over. And just because you pass it doesn't mean you'll get hired. Just means you might need to articulate yourself a little bit better. Now, the last one is the free coaching call with myself or any of the other instructors. Jump on it. We'll walk you through anything and any questions you have specific to your hiring process. Now, how do you handle interviews and how do you know if you did well in them? I can say this, it's very rare that an interviewer or a board will tell you if you pass or not. And I've said this before about micro indicators, specifically pertaining to the board interview, whether or not you've passed based on a micro indicator. A micro indicator looks like this. If you go up to your board interview and they ask you to do something after the board interview, such as, here's a packet, please fill this out, we'll be in contact. Please go get your fingerprints taken. Please go see this investigator, or please send us an email with this information. Send us your diploma or your birth certificate or your social security card. Anytime they ask you to complete an action after you've done the board interview, that's not a guarantee, but it's a good indication that you may be moving forward. Now that's to the board interview. What about all these other interviews? I've heard this by a member of mine, and it's a really good comment that they can ask. And this could be used in the poly, this could be used in the psych, and this can be used in the background investigation as well. And the question is, hey, what do you want to get out of this part of the interview, or what do you want to know at the part of this interview? And my member had said this. He's like, I think the only thing that I really want to know is I just want to know if I completed this to satisfactory requirements, right? Which was a very, very professional way to come across. I just really want to know how I did. That is one approach you can take, and it could be effective. Now, they still don't have to tell you anything, but it comes across very mature, it comes across as very professional, and it comes across in a way that someone would say, hey, I'm satisfied with what occurred here today. They didn't say you passed, they didn't say you failed, but it gives you an indicator that, hey, I'm satisfied with what you did today, that you did well, or you did well enough, right, to keep moving on. So a little tip to start this one off that you might want to take with you and use that to kind of feel out how you're doing on these interviews. Now let's look at the polygraph, right? So you go into the polygraph, you use that last technique I just told you. That one would probably work specifically in the polygraph. But here's some other indicators, not guarantees, right? Not guarantees, but here's some other indicators that you maybe did well in your polygraph interview. You go in, you do your polygraph, and they say nothing to you afterwards. They don't even repeat a question. That could be really bad, right? Right off the bat, it could be really bad. Or it could mean they were satisfied with what your answers are. And or they could let something slip. Now, normally they will not give you, and they say, hey, it appears to me that you're not being deceptive. That doesn't mean you passed, right? Because what could be asked during your polygraph, you could have admitted to something that you didn't admit to in your background packet, and you could be DQ'd. So just because you don't fail the poly doesn't mean you pass on to the next part of the hiring phase, because your background investigator is going to look and compare your polygraph results to your background investigation and your PHS. Understand that is always what occurs. So now you go in and they say, hey, yeah, I'm satisfied, or it appears that you haven't been deceptive. That's great, right? That means that you probably did well on your polygraph. Here's another one. If they ask you to come back for another polygraph, right? If they say, hey, we got to clarify some stuff, all it means is that they couldn't determine that anything was deceptive, but they just want to confirm because maybe they had something that was an inconclusive reading. And inconclusive is good. Inconclusive is good compared to a deceptive or dishonest reading, right? Inconclusive, these machines aren't perfect and they're being interpreted by a human, right? So keep that in mind. So when it comes to that, that is a good sign if you come back. Now, a lot of people will make the mistake and say, "Oh, well, I just need to change something so they'll believe me and move forward." No, as long as you're honest from the beginning, you do your polygraph, they send you back and say, "Okay," and then they call you the same day or next day and say, "Hey, we're going to need you to come back next week and just go over," and they run through 3 or 4 more questions just to confirm because they were inconclusive. Stay with your answers that were honest, as long as they were honest. If you're lying, I'm not here to help you. But if you're honest from the beginning, do not deviate, because the minute you deviate, it's admission after the fact and you're done, right? You're done. They're not looking to just get something, even though they may say, hey, just give us anything. Just no, that is a trick. That is a trick. And it's a horrendous one that they do, but they deal with people trying to lie to them all the time. So it's a really tough balance, because then you get good candidates that just are honest and think that they're being honest, because honest people believe that other people are honest. And say, okay, yeah, maybe I was thinking about XYZ, even though that doesn't really predict. No, it doesn't work. And then we lose a good candidate because they use some interviewing / interrogation technique that got a good candidate to maybe just believe them and say that thought they just need to say anything, even though that wasn't true. And next thing you know, you're DQ'd. And we just lost a good candidate. No, stick to the facts and stick to being honest from the very beginning. And then you don't have anything to worry about. Now, that's the poly, right? Those are some indicators with the poly. Well, what about the psych? The psych is a tricky one, because you can walk into a psych and they'll say, come in, and let's say I'm the psych evaluator and I say, hey, my name's Frank. Keep this super cordial. Nothing really tense here. Nothing super professional. This isn't formal. So I'm Frank. It's nice to meet you. I'll be your evaluator. But like I said, please just refer to me as Frank. And yeah, so let's just go over a couple. So what was the answer for this one? Why did you feel that way? Oh, you were in the military. Oh, me too. Yeah. Yeah, I did this. What did you do? Oh, I see. Yeah. So did you ever deploy? Oh, you did. How long were you gone for? Oh, all right. Any combat or any? Yeah. All that they're just, shooting the breeze with you, so to say. It's an interviewing technique, right? Remain professional at all times. Do not ever drop your professionalism, because you can't do it on the street when you become a law enforcement officer. Yes, you can be cordial with individuals, absolutely, but you have to maintain professionalism, right? A kid can walk up to you and say, "Oh, can I have a police sticker?" And you can call him Bud. That's fine. But you can't sit here and take the kid and let them run through your squad car, without higher approval, or getting permission from a supervisor, right? You gotta mean, hey, can you, you know, can you and I drive around with your lights and sirens on in the parking lot? No, no, I would need approval for that. Hey, so sorry, bud, I can't do that. But we do have this event where we have, shop with a cop, or where we go to school events. Maybe you can put in a request and I can come to your school with the squad car, and then you guys can play in it there. Right? That's perfectly acceptable and reasonable option for something along those lines. Mm-hmm. So now you're in with the psych. They're asking you about questions either on your exam that you filled out or personally, and they probably have access to your background packet. They probably have access to your polygraph results. They probably have access to everything at this point in time. Do not try to lie. Do not try to manipulate. We do a lot on closing the loop where, you're specific, you don't elaborate, you answer the question that's in front of you without going into some extended extended explanation that makes you lose train of thought of the initial question, right? And opens a million doors for the psychologist to go down. And then we just close the loop and you come back to answering the specific question and not kind of opening up all these avenues that really are not pertinent to the interview, at least not until you brought them up to the psychologist, because the psychologist would have never thought like, hey, this is pertinent until you brought it up because you're the one who mentioned it, right? So an example of that being is, hey, why do you want to be a law enforcement officer? Oh, I want to be a law enforcement officer because I really want to help people and because of a traumatic event that happened in my past. Oh, you had a traumatic event in your past. What happened? ABCD happened. Oh, okay. And that's how long ago was that? That was, 12 years ago. Oh, so that made a significant impact and changed your life. Yeah. So, did they ever catch the criminal that had done this? No, they never caught him. Well, what would you do if you ever came across that criminal, especially as a law enforcement officer, right? Now you're in a very, very touchy and convoluted situation when it comes to answering a question such as that, because you've already admitted that this had a tremendous impact on you and it's already changed the course of your trajectory of your career. And now you're just going to say, oh, I would do nothing. They may not believe you on that one, or you may have opened the door to where they think, hey, individual has, trauma revolving around this particular crime, right? And they might write that up in the report, which might not be conducive to you passing the psych exam or the psych eval. A lot of things there. So things to look for that will give you that edge to know, hey, I did all right in this. Where once again, you can use that same situation. Hey, what are you hoping at for the outcome of this? I think the best outcome I can hope for is just knowing if I met the satisfactory requirements. I'm passionate about this career and I want to make sure that I can get out there and serve others. Right. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Hopefully they'll give you something off of that. If not, they can say, hey, yeah, if you hear them say, hey, that's it for me, everything looks good. And if they say something along the lines of, yep, I'll get this report right over to the department so that they can keep moving forward. That sounds great, right? They're kind of indicating, hey, you're going to move forward. They say something of, you'll hear from the department in a few days regarding my report. You have no idea which way that's going to go. It kind of leads towards a negative connotation, but you have no idea where it's going to go. If they say something along the lines of, hey, it appears that you have some issues here that, that I'm going to need to report to the department, or there's a few things that the department's going to need to take a look at. It's not moving in the right direction for you, right? It's not ideal. Now, it's very rare that you'll get that because most psychologists are advised, please don't share any of the outcomes with the applicant, which is also what the polygraph's given. It's also what the background investigator is given. And they say any notification needs to be from official sources. So yeah, there's the psych's a little bit harder, but at the same point in time, it's also a little less formal, or they tend to make it a little less formal. Now that's an interrogation, excuse me, an interviewing technique, so don't quite fall for it. But at least at that point in time, hopefully they'll be willing to give you at least a little bit of something. And then you can always do a follow-up with the department. Now, the next indicator with the completing the psych is if they move forward with you quickly. If they say, hey, you get an email correspondence right after the psych, you notify your background investigation or hiring official, completed my psych exam, felt confident, whatever you want to say there. And then they respond to you, excellent, okay, we need you to come in and do a fitting, right? If you're getting fitted for clothes and they're prepping you for academy dates, things are looking really good in your favor. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get hired. They could always find something last minute, or someone can make a bad report. Anything along those lines can really mess up your hiring process. But you're sitting and standing in a really good position at that point in time if they're starting to fit you for clothing. If they're saying, hey, we're wrapping up your reference check. If they're saying, hey, can you come in and start signing paperwork? Those are all indicators that whatever interview you just last completed, you're moving forward on it, right? So if they're saying, hey, do this after this, everything's looking pretty good. Let's back up here, right? To the board interview. You're in the board interview, you're completing the board interview, and they go off script, right? Off script can be good or bad, but a lot of times I see it go towards the good aspect, right? Because they're intrigued, they're more invested, they want to know more because your answers are leading them to be inquisitive about you. Now that could be bad too, but a lot of times statistically I see it more on the positive side, and they're getting inquisitive. Another good sign that maybe you're doing well in the board interview if they're starting to go off script. A lot of times we very much deter that for the sheer fact that we try to keep the interviews non-biased, whereas we stick to a specific set of questions so that no one can feel that there was any type of bias in the hiring process, and it helps from the legal standpoint as well. But that is one thing you definitely want to consider when they're asking you if they start going off script, when they ask you to elaborate more on an answer or to explain, hey, what's working for this department really mean to you, and what do you hoping to accomplish here? And unless that's a standardized question, sometimes it is. Things are looking good for you. Big thing to take away from this is you want to make sure that you are keeping an eye out for any indicators that you may be moving forward. You're going to have uncertainty, and that's how I want to wrap up this one. You're going to have uncertainty, and you're not going to know. One thing I always tell my coaching members to do is if you haven't heard from them in 4 weeks, no contact, zero contact for 4 weeks. Now's time to probably draft a professional email. I have them run it by me, where I have them use a template that we have. And then at that point in time, they send it off and on a specific day to make sure that they have the best chances of a response, so to say. And we do that. But that uncertainty is always going to be there. You're never going to know until they officially tell you, hey, you're moving forward to the next step, or please schedule your, and sometimes they won't even say, hey, you passed your board. They just say, please schedule your polygraph. That's where you have to kind of deduce this. And within law enforcement, you're an investigator, right? Even if you're patrol, you do preliminary investigations, you're an investigator. You got to make sure that you can read between the lines and understand what is occurring, so that you can maybe bring some of those nerves you're feeling back down to reality. I hope this helps. Remember, those gifts are down in the description for you. The Getting Started workshop, hidden bonuses, as well as the new exam, the police eligibility exam, is down there as well. And then the free coaching call. I had to think about that. The free coaching call with myself or any of our other instructors. We've brought a bunch more on for you because everyone was saying that there wasn't enough availability. So we brought on a bunch more instructors. Go in, sign up. You'll enjoy it. And I'll see you next time. Stay safe.